Today's daf is daf Nun Zayin. We began already yesterday. Let's continue with Gufa, which is about 15 lines down from the top. Gufa. Boy minei Rabbi Yochanan mi Rabbi Oshia. Patsua Daka Cohen Shenosa Bas Gerin Maushiach Ilenu B'Truma. So the Patsua Daka himself could eat Truma, and the question is, can he be Machel B'Truma if he marries a Bas Gerin? And there are different dimensions of this suffix, as we'll see soon. Maushiach Ilenu B'Truma Ishtik. Rabbi Oshia had no answer for Rabbi Yochanan. V'lo Amalei, v'lo Mida. He didn't give him any response. L'sof, after a certain amount of time, Asa Gavar Rabachrin, another great man came along, and he too presented a question, Boy Minei, to Rabbi Oshia, Milsachrit, on a different subject. The Gemara doesn't specify what that was. Upashatli, Rabbi Oshia gave him an answer. Umanu, who is this Adam Gadol that Rabbi Yoshaya responded to his question? Rabbi Reish Lakish. So Amalei Rabbi Yehuda Nisiel Rabbi Yoshia. Oto Rabbi Yochanan Lav Gavarabahu. Why is it that you didn't give any response to Rabbi Yochanan? He's not a Gavarabah. He's not a great man like Reish Lakish. You gave Reish Lakish an answer. Why didn't you give Rabbi Yochanan? Amalei Rabbi Yoshia's response to Rabbi Yehuda Nisiah, that the reason why he didn't give a response to Rabbi Yochanan, it's not because he wasn't machshiv him as an Adam Gadol, but rather the Kapoy Minai Milsa, the Leslie Pitre. He asked me something, and I didn't know the answer to his question. So we see clearly that Rabbi Oshia did not come to any final conclusion on this issue, this question about whether a Dak who's married to Bas Gerim can be Machil HaTrum. Laman. The Gemara now analyzes the question of Rabbi Yochanan. According to which Shita, we'll soon see that there are three Shitos in Tanoim here. According to which Shita was this suffix presented when Rabbi Oshia vacillated as to whether or not the Psuadaku married a Bas Gerim can be Machal true or not? According to which Shita was he asking? Either Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, this is Rabbi Yehuda Masechet Kiddushin Daf Ayin Zayin, that Bas Ger Zachar ki Bas Cholol Zachar, meaning the daughter of a Ger is like the daughter of a Cholol. And that means that she's Psula L'Kuhuna, like a Bita, like a Bas of a Cholol. A Bas of a Ger Zachar is like a Bas of a Cholol, and she's Psula L'Kuhuna. We'll see soon that other Tanoim disagree with Rabbi Yehuda. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no question here that in this case of Tudaka, marrying a Bas Gerim, he cannot be Machal HaTruma. Why? Bein b'kedushasei koy, ubein la b'kedushasei koy lo achla. The Gemara is going to say the following. We don't know what the status of the Ptsua Daka is as far as Ishus is concerned, meaning Ishus of Kahuna. The Kohen who's a Ptsua Daka, is he still enjoined from marrying the women who are Asuras LeKahuna? Or shall we say no? La b'kedushasei, as far as Kedushas Kahuna is concerned, he does not have that dimension of Kedushas Kahuna as far as Ishus. He's allowed to marry even a Zona, Grusha, Halol, etc., who would normally be Asuros L'Kohen. That's called Lav Kedushasei Kaima. And Kedushasei Kaima means that he has a full-fledged Kedushas Kahuna. He's not allowed to marry any woman that is prohibited to get married to a Kohen. He's not allowed to marry. And this has nothing to do with his essential status as a Kohen. He certainly has Kedushas Kahuna. He eats Truma, and you see that from Asugya. And he's enjoined from going into Beis HaKfaros, like a Kohen is, etc., etc. But as far as Ishus is concerned, here we vacillate. We're not sure whether the Kedushasei Kaima, and he has and he retains the same Isur of marriage to those women who are prohibited to a Kohen, or La Kedushasei Kaima, and he is allowed to marry a woman who is Asura Likahuna. Either way, says the Gemara, Lo Ochla. According to Rabbi Yehuda Shita, she, the Bas Gerim, who's married to a Padaku, would not eat Truma. Why? If we assume that a Ptsuadaka is not allowed to marry a woman who is prohibited to Kohanim, and now this Bas Gerim, we said according to Rabbi Yehuda Masechet Kiddush, she has the status of a Chalol. Her father, who's a Zohar, is like a Chol. She's a Bas Chol, so to speak. Therefore, there's no way that he can be Machel HaBitruma. The Omar Mar, Bas Ger Zohar, this is Rabbi Yehuda Shita, a Bas Chol Zohar. She's Psul Lakuna, she has the status of a Chalol. Her father is a Ger. And therefore, if the Kohen Ptsuadaka is Omed B'Kedushas Kahuna, and he's not allowed to marry a Chalola, then having a bia with a Bas Ger Zohar would take her over the top, so to speak. With that bia, she become Mischaleles, and she has the status of Chalola that could not possibly eat Truma. One could ask, why does Gemara think that through the bia she becomes Psul Lakuna? According to Rabbi Yehuda, by her very birth, she's from the moment of her birth, she's Psul Lakuna, because she has the status of a Chalol. Now, of course, it's true that she's Asura Linase Lekohen, and now we're saying B'Kedushas Koi, and therefore the bia would passel her, but the question is why we need that. I mean, she's already Psul Lakuna from birth, but maybe there are different dimensions of Psul Kahuna. And as far as Truma is concerned, you need that bia haposel. It's not the fact that she was born to someone who is a ger zachar. And also the language is kibas chol zach, kibas. And she doesn't have the full-fledged status of Chalola until after bia. So she's asura l'kohen as a Chalola, according to Rabbi Yehuda, but she's not completely psula as far as aspects beyond the issues are concerned, like, for example, Achil Trua. But in any event, now that this Kohen Psuadaka had a relationship with her status is that of Chalola, she becomes Psula through the Bia, and her status is that of a Chalola in the full-fledged sense of the term, and she certainly is Asura Lechel B'Truma. Now we go on to the other side. If a Kohen Ptsuadaka loses his status as Kedushas Kahuna as far as Ishus is concerned, meaning he's allowed to marry a Chalola, Grusha Zona, etc., then he's allowed to marry a Bas Gerim. Nevertheless, Lo Ochla. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda has another Shita, which is also in Kedushin Daf Ayin Beis Amid Beis, Ger Lo Yisam Amzeres, and Ger is called Kahal Gerim. And Kahal Gerim, according to Rabbi Yehuda, Nikroim B'Shem Kahal, and a Mamzer is Osir B'hem. Amrinon is Lo Achla. Amrinon Kahal Gerim Ikri Kahal. Now, Psuadaka is not allowed to marry into the Kahal. And if Bas Gerim is considered part of the Kahal, then he's going to have an Isur Bia with a Bas Gerim, because she's not excluded from the Kahal. She's included in the Kahal, and he's excluded from the Kahal. And in that sense, if he would have Bia with her, then he passes off from eating Truma like any Isha who has Be'ila Lepasul. She's Nifsala Mina Kahuna. And this we derive from a pasuk in Vayikra. It says, "Ubas kohen kisir le'ish zar." Trumas koshim tochal. It says, "Om Rav Yudam Rav Kemen shenivel lepasala pasla." So that's the Ish Zari in the Pasuk. So if she's a Bas Kohen, Neseres af milechol truma bebeis avia the Bas Leva Yisrael niseis leposla if selis li nasi leguna the lechol betruma li olam. So according to Rabbi Yehuda Mimonavshach, this Bas Gerim who's married to a Kohen P'tuadaka is excluded from eating truma. Now let's go on to another sheet. The Il Rabbi Yotzi. Once again, there's no room for suffix here. Why? Bein b'kedusha seikoi, ubein la b'kedusha seikoi. Achla, the wife who is a bas gerim married to a psuadaka is licensed to eat truma, and the Gemara explains why. B'kedusha seikoi, achla b'truma. So Amar Rabbi Yotzi af ger shenasa giores bito shera lakuna. That means a bas gerim is allowed to marry Kohen, and she does not have the status of a chalola, and therefore she doesn't become psula through a bia with a Kohen. She's kshera li nase lekohen. Therefore, likewise, she can eat truma. So now let's go back to the status of the P'tsuadak. If he's labik, and that means that he could marry even those women who are suros likahuna. Achla, she can still eat truma. He's mufka from kol, and therefore his beer with the Bas Yisrael should hassle her to kahuna. No, the Amar of Yossi holds kahal gerim lo ikri kol, which means that gerim are not b'chal kol, which means that a psuadaka or any other psule kol will be allowed to marry a bas gerim, and therefore he could be machil his wife truma. So either if we go according to Rabbi Yehuda, then for sure she's pula lechol b'truma, because bas gerim kahal gerim ikri kol, and therefore he's also in the gioris and passes l'truma. But according to Rabbi Yossi, who holds kahal gerim lo ikri kol, and they're allowed to marry psuadaka, then for sure achlu b'truma. Ella says the Gemara, we have a third sheet in Tanoi, Aliba da Haitana, that's Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. We have a mission in the first parak of Bikurim, Eliezer ben Yaakov, Omer, Isha, Bas Gerim, Lo Tinase Lekahuna, Ad Shetehei Ima Yisrael. So we're talking about a different kind of a Bas Gerim. Bas Gerim, whose father is a ger, but whose mother is mi Yisrael. She's not a gyoris. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that in such a case, lo tinase, in such a case, she can marry a Kohen Bas Gerim in a case where her parents are both Gerim. Then she cannot marry Kohen. However, if her mother is a Bas Yisrael, even though her father is a Ger, she's allowed to marry Kohen. And now we'll have a suffix in the case of Tzuadaka, who marries a Bas Gerim She'ima Yisrael, which means that the marriage is beheter. So l'chora, it should be posher that she eats tzuma. She's not psula. She's not a chalola. There's no bias avera. Why shouldn't the Kohen P'tzuadaka be machel habitruma? Hachimi boile, says the suffix about Bas Gerim She'ima Yisrael, according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, is the following. shall we say kashrus mitvasva? I would add the word only kashrus mitvasva, which means she doesn't have kedushas kol. She only has kashrus lekahuna. That's what was added to her, so to speak, by the fact that her mother is a Yisrael, Batz Yisrael. She still lacks kedushas kahal Hashem. Is therefore achla. Why is achla? Because there's no violation of psulei kol, of psua daka, because kedusha lo mitfasvah. On the other hand, there's no bias isa l'kohanim, right? Even if I assume, let's say that a psua daka b'kedusha, he's not allowed to marry zona halal, etc. But nevertheless, here the bias is a bias heter, because kashrus mitvasvah. From the fact that our mother is a bas Yisrael kshera, she becomes kshera linase l'kuhuna. So we're holding now that she's not considered kriya l'kol because dafka kashrus, but kedusha lo nitvasvah. I mean, I think it's important to add those words to the Gemara. She doesn't have kedushas kal Hashem. So there's no bias averi, and she can eat truma. So what's it sad that maybe she couldn't eat truma? Dilma, shall we say that not only kashrus mitvasvah, again I would add a word, but afilu kedusha mitosvah. She also has kedusha. She's considered kol, like a regular bas Yisrael gemura. And therefore, lo achla truma. Why? Because now she's nevelas beilas isur sheposla. And even if I hold la b'kedushasei kaima, which means he's allowed as a kohen to marry any girl, so there's no problem in marrying a bas gerim. But nevertheless, we have a different issue, and that's kol. And now we're saying she's included in kol because kedusha, even kedusha mitvasvah, not only kshera lekahuna, but even kedusha she has. Is therefore lo achla b'truma, because now she's nevelas bilas isa, and even if I allow the kedusha sekayim, he can marry a chalola, it's irrelevant because she has kedushas kol, and if she has kedushas kol, she can't marry he who is excluded from kol, like a mamzer, but in this case, a psua daka. And through the bia, she becomes psula. So basically, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov is now vacillating about the din of kedusha with regard to a bas gerim whose mother is a bas Yisrael. We know that she's kshera l'kuna, no suffix about that. And that's called in the Lashon HaGemara kashrus mitvasvah, but we're not sure. He vacillates back and forth whether it's kashrus and kedusha or kashrus and only kashrus. So what's our status as far as kol is concerned? Ashma, the Gemara quotes a brisa to finally tip the scale on this. I think he also Rabbi Acha bar Chinina midaroma. He came from the south of Eretz Yisrael. Also va'aisi masnisa biyode, and he brought a brisa with him. Inai liptu daka kohen nasa bas erev shemachila betruma. We need a special ribui to permit and give license to a bas gerim that's married to a dakati truma. Nemar, and we're going to derive it from Parshas Emor. Kohen ki yikne nefesh kinyan kaspo yochal bo. And there's an extra word in this pasuk, nefesh. And it's coming to be marba even if to a Daka Kohen who married a Bas Gerim. That she eats truma, because that's the pasuk in the parasha of truma. Yochal bo, meaning truma. So this is a ribui for Ptsua Daka, Shenasa Bas Gerim. Leman. I Lemel Rabbi Yehuda, Hamar Bein B'Kedushasei Koi Bein La B'Kedushasei Koi Loach. So this price is definitely against Rabbi Yehuda, because Rabbi Yehuda holds Loach. The I Le Rabbi Yossi Lama Likra. According to Rabbi Yossi, why do I need a pasuk to be marbe going to a daka? Machil Bas Gerim B'Truma. Ha'amar, we already explained that according to Rabbi Yossi, Bein B'Kedushasei Koi Ubein La B'Kedushasei Koi Achla. So the Ishto Bas Gerim eats truma, and we don't need a limud for that. Elah by process of elimination lit Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. According to him, we had a suffix whether he's macha b'truma in the case of Bas Gerim, whether he's not. Shema Mina, let's derive from that sugya that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, in the case of Bas Gerim, whose mother is Yisrael, is only kashrus it goes. And the Kohen to a dak is allowed to marry her because she's not considered kol. So bimanavshach, she has kashrus l'kuhuna because her mother is the Yisraelis, and she is not considered kedusha mitvas b'ba, which means she's not part of the kol, and therefore her relationship with to a daku who is excluded from the kol is that of heter, and therefore v'ochla shma mina. So the Gemara is finally poshet this suffix of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov based on this drasha that she can eat truma. So a daku who's married to a Bas Yisrael she could eat truma. And the Gemara ends up with shma mina. Just want to make sure we add the point that we're talking about Gerim she'ima mi Yisrael.